So for today's interview, we're sitting at Atomic Johnny's talking to a longtime friend of mine, Gene Jackson. Gene, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again. Been a couple of years, but yeah, let's put it together. So I hear you've got a bunch of good stuff you want to bring to Gadsden. For a little bit of background, Gene's kind of like the Gadsden version of Vince McMahon. He's been involved with amateur wrestling for a number of years, and any of his social content is worth a follow because the passion of it. I watched wrestling when I grew up too. I think everybody about our age that grew up in this part of the country probably watched wrestling at some point. But through watching Gene's content, I kind of rekindled that stuff that I'd forgotten long ago and gained a newfound understanding for it. So it's definitely worthwhile, and thanks for doing that.
Well, that's cool. That's good to hear, man, because that's, I tolerate current wrestling.
It is different when you watch it.
Because it's something I've been around and loved all my life, but my heart is really in the 80s and 90s wrestling, and that's what I spend most of my time watching, and that's what I like doing podcasts about and interviews with people about and things like that. But, you still got to talk about the current stuff every now and then. And like you said, I was involved with professional wrestling here across the Southeast for many years. Off and on during that time. So when I was a kid, I didn't love football, I didn't love basketball, I didn't love sports per se. I played baseball when I was a kid. I was in Little League. But I was a huge wrestling fan, obviously. But the other thing I loved was stand-up comedy. I loved that growing up. The first comedy special I ever watched as a kid, and this isn't popular to say now, you may have to edit this out, I don't know, was Bill Cosby himself back in the day. He used to come on Cinemax, and I saw that. I could quote that when I was a young child. I
had the audio cassette. I did not know there was a video for it for, let's see, until I started dating my wife.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I was an adult, but we had the cassette tape. We wore the cassette tape out years and years ago.
It would come on Cinemax like 3 or 4 days a week, and I would sit and watch it almost every time. And even as a kid, it occurred to me, like, you can make a living sitting in a chair telling funny stories on stage. That's amazing. But I didn't know how you'd ever go about that or how you'd do it. So
am I falling out of this chair?
So years ago, like I said, I got involved in wrestling around 1997. Did it for a few years. I got married to my first wife who hated wrestling. And it was so miserable fighting with her about going to wrestling events and things like that. I got out of wrestling. I started writing for a couple of wrestling websites. That's how I kind of scratched that itch for a while. I wrote for WrestlingNewsCenter.com and Wrestling Riot Online. And then eventually, in 2007, I started a wrestling podcast on Blog Talk Radio. And back in those days, it was just me and Colt Cabana and Mark Maron and about 4 other people that had podcasts. Now, everybody that draws a breath has a podcast about something. And that's
Guilty.
great. That's great, man. I've got 2 or 3 at the moment. But anyway, so then I used podcasting to scratch that itch. But eventually, I divorced that wife and got back into wrestling. And eventually, I met a wonderful woman whom I'm married to now. Her uncle had been involved in promoting wrestling here in Gadsden and around Alabama, so she was a fan of it.
Because they used to have shows at the Gadsden Coliseum back in the day.
And he had a big hand in that, with all the big stars back in the day.
I played basketball there when I was a kid, but I remember seeing the wrestling, the posters and everything for the amateur stuff.
So, I got back involved with it. But during that time when I was out of it, when I was married to the first wife, we went to a comedy show at the Stardome in Birmingham. I don't remember who we went to see, honestly. But they had an advertisement for open mic night. And I thought, that's interesting. I may give that a try. At the time, it was around the time you knew me. I was driving back and forth from Albertville to Rainbow City every day to Walgreens. Shout out to Walgreens. Anyway, I was driving back and forth. I was listening to those comedy stations all the time, and I was big into comedy. So I went down to the Stardome.
That's what I was listening to when I left Rainbow City. I was driving around in the van.
There you go. It's still out there. But I went down to Stardome in Birmingham, started doing open mics. I met a guy named Matt Mitchell, a.k.a. the Casio Kid.
Yes.
Who went to school with a couple of girls from Walgreens there that worked in the pharmacy. So
he's from here in town.
Exactly. So I had to end with him. So me and him started together. A few years down the line, he did a show over here in Alabama City at the Ritz Theater, and I got to open for him over there.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool. And then I got to open for him back in December of last year. It was the first time I'd seen him in a while. So anyway, I was kind of in and out on comedy. I would do shows every now and again, starting in 2006 up until about 2.5 years ago. I would just do it every once in a while. Then I'd go 2 years without doing a show.
Yeah.
Then I'd do a couple, and then I wouldn't, and I would do the wrestling. Well, anyway, reality started to set in that I'm 45 years old, and I don't know. I'm hoping you have some slimming technology on this camera that makes me look slightly less fat than I am. But I decided, I don't need to be getting in there falling down as a hobby anymore.
It's rough on your body.
It's very rough. I get around like an old man a lot of days from all the falling down I did, and I didn't do near as much as, like I said, I took all those breaks in between, And anybody ever saw me wrestle, I wasn't jumping off ladders or flying off cages or anything. No, I wasn't Mankind flying off a sail. But anyway, I decided, you know what? I'm going to get full on into this comedy. I'm fixing to really make a go at this, and so we moved to Gadsden. And I knew there was a comedy club in Anniston, Happy Hour Comedy Club. A buddy of mine who has since passed away had told me about it. He'd been begging me for a long time, man, you got to come down here. You got to come down here. But I was all the way up in Coleman.
Right.
If you know on the map, but Coleman and Anniston's kind of far.
Can't get there from here.
When you're working from home like I was at the time, I wasn't a hermit at the time. I wasn't leaving the house. But anyway, I feel like I'm talking too much in this, but
it's an interview. Talk away.
But anyway, I started going to Happy Hour. And the owner liked me and pretty much was like, anytime you want to come on.
Nice.
You got an open invite. So,
and I know that's got to help when because doing something like that would be stepping out on a limb.
It is. I feel like a lot of times, like I've had a couple of friends ask me, like, well, do you feel like all the wrestling you did was kind of for nothing since you didn't really make it? And I enjoyed it. I love it. I had fun doing it. So I never think it's for nothing. But getting into comedy, when you're sitting backstage, especially with those open mics with people who are just starting out, people's biggest fear, the biggest thing they have to overcome is that stage fright, going up there, oh my God, I got to talk in front of people. Well, I used to go out in front of, anywhere from 50 to 2,000 people and make them hate my guts. They threw stuff at me, yelled at me.
So you were a heel.
So yeah, always.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what it was all about for me. You get to have a bad week at work. You knew Friday night somebody's going to take it on the chin for this. I'm gonna get this frustration out. I promise you.
Yeah.
But once you've gone out and done that, I don't care about going up in front of 25, 50, 100, 250 people in a comedy club. What's the worst they're gonna do? Not laugh? Well, at least they're not gonna throw nothing at me. They're not gonna go threaten to slice the tires of my car. I was over in Piedmont. My wife had to stop coming because people figured out that she was my wife and was threatening to follow her out to the car and slash those tires and all kinds of craziness.
That's Piedmont, though.
That's Piedmont. That's all I used to say. I was like, Piedmont's a special place.
It is a very special place.
It's like getting in a DeLorean every Friday night and going back in time 30 years when I crossed that city limit.
Yeah, right at that point on 278, right before the drive-in theater, you hit 88 miles an hour. And, yeah.
Absolutely. So, I started getting into stand-up comedy more, going pretty regularly, 2-3 times a month, sometimes more, sometimes less. Was doing a couple of characters on stage. We won't go into all that here. This will turn into a 2-hour interview about a whole different topic of like characters and comedy and all this thing. But anyway, what we're getting to, I've got couple other friends who've been involved with the wrestling business. Shane Knowles, who is a promoter of Peach State Wrestling over in Georgia. That was a pretty, big promotion over there. A lot of guys that you see on television now came through there and got their start over there. The Austin Theories of the world, and AJ Styles, and Jimmy Rave, and all these different people. And Shane was kind of like me. He was kind of winding down wrestling. He's still involved, and he still may run some shows. And another friend of mine, Steve Pleasing, who's Delbert Jenkins, who's Buck Jenkins' cousin, which again, that's a whole nother set up for another interview for that. But anyway, so those guys are wrestlers, and kind of like me, they had an interest in comedy. Shane had done it once a long time ago on like a dare or something, and Steve had tried it on a wrestling show that they were doing comedy on. And then another buddy of mine that I met right here at Atomic Johnny's, actually, Wes Sears, who does comedy here around Gadsden. He's from over in Jacksonville, and he actually got me on a show here. We did comedy here back in October of last year, I think it was. And a great place, if we didn't mention it, Atomic Johnny's. If you ain't been, if you're in or around Gadsden, you haven't been at Atomic Johnny's, what are you doing? Get down here. It's a great place, great food.
Yes.
Really, I don't know if you can. I mean, look at this wall right here. I mean, this is the atmosphere.
I know, just the artwork alone.
Super cool.
Yeah, Uncle Sam with a flamethrower. Didn't get much cooler than that.
When he was giving me direction on where to get, he goes, "Move closer to the German Shepherd." And I've done a lot of interviews. I've been a lot of places.
That's a brand new sentence.
I've never heard that before. But
the great thing about Atomic Johnny's that I appreciate is they do so much different kinds of entertainment, because we've got those spots, and they have their place. If you want to go listen to a band, if you want to go listen to a cover band, have a few beers after work on Friday night, you've got those places. Atomics does so many different things, like open mic nights. They do comedy shows. They do game night. So they do like deep into nerd territory, but they do like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, and all that. They do that on one night a week. So this is a great venue to experience those different kind of things. Just something different, and that's what I like. Is they're one of the only places around where you can do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, check it out and tell them we sent you.
Yes.
So anyway, we got together with Wes, and so I started booking the third Saturday of every month over at Happy Hour Comedy Club. He gave me a night, like, book who you want to book. It's your night, it's your show.
Oh, nice.
So
creative direction.
So I brought in Wes and Shane and Steve as kind of a one-off, like, hey, these are some guys I want to do a show with, and it went really well. We had a good time. The crowd, did a pretty good crowd the first night out that we did it, and the club owner was really happy. He's like, hey, keep those guys around. So I told him, I said, hey man, y'all want to do another show next month? And so brought those guys back, brought in a couple of guys from Montgomery, James Edgerton and Tyler Fomby, which are really funny guys. Look those guys up on YouTube. If you're already on YouTube watching this, you're halfway there. And so we did another show. It drew even more. And so was talking to those guys, like, hey man, we got a pretty good little group here, and Wes has never been involved in wrestling, but he's a huge wrestling fan. That's kind of how we hit it off. We started out talking about comedy, but he looked on my Facebook and he's like, oh, you're a wrestling guy. He's like, oh, we got plenty to talk about. So me and him would chat about, wrestling back and forth. So we decided to brand ourselves Main Event Comedy, and kind of bring the wrestling and
full
comedy
circle
together.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, third Saturday of every month at Happy Hour Comedy Club in Anniston, Alabama, we have Main Event Comedy Night there. Starting in August, on August the 19th, we're going to have the Main Event Comedy Championship, which is going to be competitions, and it's open from anybody to people who's never done comedy to experienced comedians. Anybody that wants to join can go online at themaineventcomedy.com. You can go on there and find where to register. So in August, September, October, November, there's going to be 4 different competitions that you can go enter now. The winner of each one of those competitions will get $100 cash and go to the finals in December.
Okay.
The 4 people that win those 4 events will face off in a competition in December. A little more time, longer sets.
Work on your material a little more.
Exactly. And in December, the winner of that will win $200 cash, and they will win the Main Event Comedy Championship belt. There's actually going to be a belt made,
because
right?
Of course.
Of course. And so people have asked me, like, are y'all going to be like doing angles, or people are going to be like, no, we're not we're not going to try to bring that element of wrestling into it. But what I do want to do, and this competition is going to be kind of an experiment in this. Not so much or just the way wrestling is promoted, but like the way I was a big fan of early UFC.
Okay.
I kind of fell out of it as the years went on, but
when it got really big.
When it got really big, and they kept adding more and more rules, and they needed more rules than they had in the beginning.
True.
When they were just punching people below the belt repeatedly until they gave up. That's not appropriate. But anyway, I always felt that when I got into comedy, there's a lot of missed opportunity in the way people promote comedy shows, I think. And so I was talking to my buddies, and the Main Event Comedy guys I was just talking about. I said, what if we set up these competitions and we start promoting them the way like old school UFC was promoted, as in put videos together, get some clips of these folks, find out some stats on them, what competitions they've been in, where they started, how long they've been doing it, what style of comedy do they do, all these different elements that they add about fighters, but put it to comedians.
Right.
And then, in the weeks leading up to the competition, each week or twice a week, coming up, Justin's going to be there. He's a storyteller from blah, 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 and promote them like fighters. And you ain't got to talk smack about each other. Nobody's got to threaten anybody. But I think that would add a fun element to it. And it'd get people invested before they even come in. If they've watched these videos and they're like, hey, man, that guy, he sounded interesting. I hope he wins. So they get invested in it before they come.
Entrance music?
Yeah, entrance music. I'm going to be there. So I'm not going to enter it because I don't want anybody to. So we're going to have, that's another thing I want to put over here too. Outside judges who have no link to me, who have no link to Flint, the owner of the club.
Right.
They're going to be completely, they're not going to have any allegiances to anybody. They're just going to pick the funniest person.
Gotcha.
But I'm not going to enter it nonetheless because I don't want to. Not that I would win, but if I did win, everybody like, yeah, he won his own. Yeah, of course he won his own thing. So I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to be the Joe Rogan.
Okay.
Where after somebody's set, so it started out kind of good, but there towards the end you started losing. Where do you think you went wrong? Or hey, what could have went better? What are you going to do different next time?
Yeah.
Those types of things. Maybe talk to some people before they go up. Talk to some people after they go up. And if they want to talk smack,
we won't stand in
I don't
their
want.
way.
Yeah, I don't want to be like, hey, don't go, like, hey, fat guy, or hey, whatever. But be like, hey, I'm the funniest one here, and next time, I'm going to take down whoever, whatever. Just more stuff to get people invested.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what the Main Event Comedy Championship, that whole element of it is me testing this theory of like, hey, is this a way you could promote comedy in the way that you promote wrestling and promote MMA fighting and things like that, just to change it up a bit.
Well, and one of the things that I like about that, to me, one of the charms of old school wrestling was, I know when everything went national and everything kind of consolidated, they talk about the regional era. I've been watching a non-zero number of wrestling documentaries here lately on YouTube, just, kind of getting back into it and, trying to remember or have the correct version of memories from a kid. But a lot of the stuff, I always found the charm was, because I was big into dirt track racing. So my dad, we went tracks all over the Southeast trying to find better racing. Green Valley Speedway, when it used to be open, we were down there a lot. Towards the end of there, I actually worked at the track, so it was kind of like seeing on the other side of the curtain, and then never ruin the action. But said all that to say this: the charm of it was that you could go to a dirt track race and you could walk around in the pits and smell the gasoline. You could, or racing fuel, alcohol, whatever they were running. You could meet those guys, and tell them, hey, you were one of my favorites week to week. I've been watching you. And see the look on their face change. That's something that you don't get in modern WWE or modern, big time wrestling. It's almost kind of devolved back to the regional era. But when it was coming up in the regional era, you could talk to these people. You could threaten to slash the tires on their wife's car. But you had that connection with those people, and that was really what made it awesome, was that personal connection. And that's something that you don't get through a TV screen. Now, it's nice if you're seeing on YouTube, but really, any videos or promo like that is really to highlight the event, to get people to come out and see the event, see it live. You don't know what's going to happen, so that's why you don't put the whole thing on TV. But kind of seeing it go back to where you've got that personal interaction, you've got that connection with those kind of people. I've said it for years: if you lay 2 tickets to Talladega Short Track next to 2 tickets from Talladega Super Speedway, I'm going to Short Track every night of the week.
Yeah. People used to ask me when I was younger, they go, why do you watch wrestling? That stuff's fake. And I'm like, I don't watch it because I think they're really fighting. I know it's not real, but like, I watch it for the story. I watch it to see what's going to happen because they may know what's going to happen, but I don't, People watch movies and TV shows, and most of the entertainment that you consume, none of that's real.
Right.
It's all done for the sake of entertainment. So
even reality TV a lot of times is staged, and they set that up. So you're right, it's another form of entertainment, but it's great. especially for kids. When you're a teenager and you're growing up, and somebody's messed with you at school. There's nothing like going home and watching that kind of content to say, you kind of live vicariously through these other guys, and you see them work through their frustrations and all that. It's just a lot of fun.
It is. If you go into it with the right mindset, it is a lot in fun. If you're not sitting there trying to, and that's the thing now, and I'm not going to go on this whole tangent here, but people in general, society and social media has kind of, made it to where everybody's a critic. Everybody watches everything to pick it apart and tell how they could have done better and why it's dumb and all this. And so now it seems like even the biggest alleged fans of anything are always the harshest critics that try to poke holes in it and pick it apart and, that match is pretty good, but he slipped on the moonsault and then, whatever,
Well, go back and watch some of that early wrestling that we just, were glued to the TV as kids. Go back and watch that stuff as an adult and you're like, oh, it's just different. It hits different because as an adult, you kind of have all that. You're right, that affect's there. When you watch that kind of stuff from yesteryear, then you see kind of the thing, and then you compare it with modern. So the production quality is high, but it's that source material that was there. The production didn't take away from it because the source that was there was good enough.
Yeah, and now it's just you're watching a performance, you're watching a stunt show almost, where even if you knew it, wasn't real back then. Jim Cornette made one of the biggest. Greatest analogies I thought when he said that that wrestling now is almost like fans go to it like the Harlem Globetrotters. Like, we know this isn't legit, but let's go see what funny stuff they do and let's watch the show they put on. Where in 1989, we got to see Ric Flair beat Terry Funk. Yeah. He tried to break his neck. We're invested in who wins. We're here like, let's just go see what happens. Let's go see if somebody
when
breaks
Hulk
their
and
neck.
Macho Man joined forces.
Yeah.
It was like worlds colliding.
And I remember me and my friends were divided back then because I was a Hogan guy, but like my one friend who was a couple years older than me, coincidentally, was like, I don't know, man. I think Hogan's trying to hook up with Liz. Like, I would be mad if I was Macho Man too. Macho Man's right. And I'm like, how dare you? And like, we'd almost come to blows over that, But when you go back and watch it now, you go like, and then you listen to like Bruce Pritchard's podcast and things like that. You're like, that was all by design. When they show that highlight video before WrestleMania 5 of, well, back here at Survivor Series, he kind of touched her rear end, and here, he scooped her up and hugged her, and then you see it in Savage's eyes. You're like, oh, brother. You're like, oh, they were planting those seeds all along, and you didn't realize it until you got to the payoff. And the storytelling was so much better then than it is now. Now it's just all about how many flips they can do, and except for the Bloodline story. That's a great story they got going right now. If you watch any of the current stuff, check that out. But I guess back to what we're here for. So Main Event Comedy, we got that monthly show, the third Saturday of every month in Anniston at Happy Hour Comedy Club, happyhourcomedyclub.com. But what we want to do is branch out. We want to do shows in Gadsden. We want to do shows in Fort Payne or Scottsboro or Coleman, wherever we can go. And so that's what we're looking for ends, at different venues to start bringing a show, maybe not every month, but, every 2 or 3 months, or as often as people have us, and we're drawing big crowds. Like we're getting crowds down there in Anniston. We're drawing as good as some of his people he's bringing in from Atlanta and names, quote unquote, which kind of blows my mind. I guess it's more of a testament to like Wes's following and Shane's following, and I don't attribute it to me at all, but I think I earned my keep by getting, spending all my time promoting it. You see all the stuff, all the social media stuff, that's me. The YouTube channel, that's me. All the podcast, all that stuff that I do. So, then they bring them in, and I'll keep pumping out the content. We're back up to about 250 something subscribers on this new channel we got, and it's all our content. There's a few wrestling matches on there, but nothing from Japan. You can best believe that. But check that out, youtube.com @maineventcomedy. We were talking about before we started recording, we're starting to record some of our shows, and we got a Patreon where we're putting up full sets of shows we're doing, so you can check that out. But there's a lot of clips on our TikTok, Main Event Comedy. There's a lot of clips on our YouTube channel. clips from our podcast, all our different silly stuff we do with character stuff, the Jenkins guys and all that.
But that's what's fun. That's what's fun. I had a local concert promoter, and this guy, maybe off camera, I'll say a little bit more about him. He was an interesting character, and we'll leave it at that. But he told me many years ago, he said, you give me has-beens or cover bands, he said, I will still take local talent. He said, I'll pack arenas out with local talent before I get these cover bands or has-beens. Told me that years ago, and that's always stuck with him because he put on a festival not too far from here, and it was all local bands, and I thought, man, that's the greatest idea in the world. Now, at the time, the headliner was a cover band for Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
But he called a lot of local Northeast Alabama bands, my brother-in-law's band being one of them. And the festival was awesome during the midsummer, and I miss music festivals like that where it's a chance to show off because we've got so much talent, whether it be music, whether it be comedy, wrestling. We've got all of these things around here in this weird mix, this weird pot that we call North Alabama. And, getting out there and supporting it means that the people creating it get that validation. And you say, man, people like this. I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep doing it. So it's important to support those kind of things. But, with you branching out, bringing it to Gadsden, I think that's something that's needed here.
Well, I would, we're here at Atomic Johnny's. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a show here at Atomic Johnny's. We've talked to a couple other places. But if you're watching this and you're in Gadsden area or you're outside of Gadsden, and you're watching this, if you'd be interested in bringing a comedy show, GeneJackson95@gmail.com, or you can go to maineventcomedy.com. If you want a wrestling show, my buddy Shane Knowles still has his ring and all his paraphernalia. We can make that happen too. So we can all elements of main event comedy. And again, we got those competitions coming up in Anniston. Make sure you check those out. If you're an aspiring comedian, go on main event comedy, maineventcomedy.com, and sign up. Because like I said, all experience levels, and
the more people you get, the easier it is to expand.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've given a lot of people opportunities on our. I got a buddy of mine that actually he was a friend of my wife's, and I got to know him a little bit. He worked at a place here in town. He saw we were doing those, and he sent me a message, and he said, hey man, how can I get on stage somewhere and do some comedy? He lives over in Fort Payne.
Okay.
And I said, well, I got a show the third Saturday. He's like, can you get me on? I'm like, it's my show. Yeah, I can get you on, brother.
I know a guy.
I got you. And he came out, had a great time. He's going to do some more shows for us. So, if it's something you'd like to do, hit me up. We'll make it happen.
Awesome. Well, appreciate all the work that you're doing around all the promotion. Those skills still translate. So the more that you use those kind of skills, that's what's great. Is I see so many events that happen around here. There are people that travel from other areas. It's like the carnival.
Yeah.
For some reason, when I go to the carnival as a kid, I thought, well, these people just live around here and they crawl out of the woodwork. But that's not the case.
No.
Sometimes, kind of thankfully, but. Having this local origination, I think, is important because it becomes our stamp, and then we can export it to other areas.
Yeah.
Well, Gene, I appreciate you sitting down with me, and good luck with the expanding, and hope we get lots of people in, and I will promote the events. Just send them to me when you've got them, and we'll get them out there.
I will, man. Thank you for what you're doing with the shopgadsden.com, the YouTube channel, the website. It's doing great things for Gadsden, and like you said, the key is having people in the area doing things for the area. So that's what we're looking to do. So thanks for having me. I appreciate the forum, and thank you for watching. And remember, maineventcomedy.com.
maineventcomedy.com. Appreciate you.
Thanks. So do the Macho Man Hulk Hogan. Oh, yeah.